Limbo, an uncertain period of awaiting a decision or resolution. Or in the case of this video, is this old indie platforming puzzle game any good in 2023? Well, my name is Falling Hurts and I hope to answer just that, so let's get right into it. And with that being said, yesterday I was at my fiance's work and it was mainly because she needed help removing some spider webs that she just couldn't reach. Now, you may be thinking, why is this relevant? Well, I rode to work with her and I brought my trusty old Steam Deck with me and a nice little game called Limbo. And surprisingly, the spider genocide I committed really did put me in the right headspace for this game. Limbo is the breakout hit from indie studio Playdead. The game features a creepy, tense atmosphere with 2D side-scrolling platforming, as well as a myriad of puzzles throughout its 2 to 4 hour runtime. Releasing as one of the first major indies on Xbox 360 in July of 2010, and then later, of course, on the PlayStation platforms, PC, and even mobile phones, Limbo was met with near unanimous praise. And while the game did launch at $14.99 US back in 2010, it now sits at a base price of $9.99, and that's even lower on mobile platforms. This price cut complements the time to cost value proposition that was always kind of relevant in reviews, but if you're a real Mr. Krabs about video games, then it's always discounted during major sales as well. But now that we've kind of got those need-to-knows out of the way, I wanted to share my experience as I returned to the game for my second ever playthrough. First off, I wanted to start with what was the most striking to me, and that is the visuals. I thought the use of only black and white colors and shades in between, 50 shades of gray if you will, was done really well and translates really well to making the game appear mysterious. The really dark atmosphere of the game really makes finding things like traps that can instantly kill you or puzzles that it's hard to find the solution to a lot more challenging, and it really adds to a big part of the peril of the journey that you're on. Likewise, the pure light and therefore whiteness of certain things like the worms or the bacteria that they seemingly spawn from makes them seem so out of place in these dark environments that although you should be guided towards the light like a moth to a flame, you're very much knowing to avoid these things, and you'll see why throughout the gameplay. And really, I have to double back on the fact that a lot of the imagery in the game, like visually speaking, translates so well even though everything is so dark. And that's super impressive even today when there's certain games that don't even do as well with a lot more visual fidelity. To complement the visual presentation, we also have the audio. There's no music in Limbo per se, pretty much just vibes. Whether it's the water droplets near or far away, creature sounds, the old and unsafe machinery turning on and off, or pretty much anything in between, it's all really good. Another nice touch here is that as you're dying and drowning, there's no sound when your character is underwater, and to me that's also super interesting. And honestly, something you get to experience quite a lot in this game. And with that being said, that smoothly leads me right into the gameplay. Now, according to Wikipedia, the developer Playdead has went on record saying that this is a trial and death type game, which is clearly a play on trial and error. And trial and error in this game is a part of the loop. You're gonna die a lot. This isn't a game where you're gonna pride yourself on, unless you've just I've just jumped out of this playthrough, I know what to expect. Yeah, I could go back in and finish the game in an hour and a half and probably get a lot of the puzzles done much quicker. Yes, that's true. More quickly. I'm sorry, you motherfuckers. But to me, seeing these same death animations, especially when they can be so slow, like the drowning, it definitely did come off a bit repetitive, even if some of the visual and audio sounds that go along with these deaths, like the crunch as you get crushed or, stabbed by something, is really satisfying to hear, and there is a lot of attention to detail, as there's many ways to die. But again, ultimately, I found that waiting for the game to continue back, even though there's no loading screens or anything like that, was a bit repetitive. And I think that making minor changes to a puzzle that was continuously killing me, rather than actually doing anything to overall change the challenge, was a bit detracting from my overall enjoyment, although I did really enjoy the puzzles of the game, especially the ones that were timing based. Continuing on with the puzzles though, I really do believe they're super fun. There's a large variety of puzzles like dodging guns line of sight, finding light sources with inverted controls, and even filling rooms with water or changing the gravitational pulls of certain environments. The game also rewards forethought. As I said, there's a lot of timing based puzzles where something may fall after you, like a boulder or something like that, where you just need to run. Seeing a bunch of misplaced objects that you might see as like one of these timing-based puzzles is a good sign that you may want to plan your route accordingly. And traversal is something that is pretty simple in the game for the most part, as you're mostly just playing on a 2D plane with this boy. But gameplay variety in and of itself wasn't something I was expecting at all. So when even there was just a tiny taste of it, I was super impressed. As I said, there's the normal movement of moving back and forth. And while you're always staying on this plane, at one point you get wrapped up in spiderweb, which completely changes the way you move as it turns from a simple walk or jumping to like a hop or a long hop, which for one chase sequence really changes up the pace a little bit. And these different movement patterns are something I would have loved to see more from, and something in retrospect I can now say that they did do in their follow-up game, Inside, which I will be reviewing at some point soon whenever I get around to it. And for as great as I thought a lot of these moments were, one issue that I did have and I wanted to bring up was actually the environmental dangers, or the things that can kill you in the environment. There are super great bits of environmental design, like the exposed LED sign that will turn on and off in the rainstorm and potentially shock you if you're standing on the wrong part. But then you get something that feels so insanely outdated and from a completely different era, like simple wall spikes. And while if it made sense within the world or what was going on around it, I would have been fine. If you were in like a meat grinder or some crazy shit like that, I'd almost get it. But this is simply spikes hanging from the ceiling that will kill you if the water rises and you're underneath it. To me, that just doesn't make sense. Especially when in this situation, you didn't even need to have it there. The water was going to kill you anyway if you weren't in the right spot regardless. And in this way, the game feels both innovative and ancient from one environment to the next. This, along with the nature of the movement and the puzzles, all come together to make me think that, the game was ahead of its time in a lot of ways, and therefore aged pretty well. However, there are minor criticisms that I only wave aside due to the fact that the game doesn't cost that much and it doesn't take that long to beat. However, the final thing that I wanted to talk about, minimally because I'm not really big on the story of this game, not in like a bad way, it's just I don't really understand what's going on. You can take Limbo for what it is. This guy might be dead or not, and he's trying to reach out to his sister. I'm not really sure. Spoilers, by the way, but there's really not much of a story here. I won't say any more about anything else about what happens. There's really nothing. I should point that out again, but one thing I will say is that as you're doing the puzzles, and there's a pretty great ramp up of pacing of the difficulty, or at least the activity levels of some of these puzzles towards the end, you feel that ramp up. However, environmentally or in the world, it's not displayed to the player that the game's about to end in any real way. You do the final puzzle and you're kind of thrust right into an ending. Now, there are little collectibles throughout, and I think, collect them all. I'm not 100% sure, but there are these little collectible items that I know in Inside it can affect your ending slightly, but I'm not really sure what it does here, so maybe that's worth looking into when I YouTube this later, who knows. But regardless, it didn't really have a big impact on me, the ending, the story, anything like that, but the puzzles are what you're here for, and they feel pretty good. And this game is a great precursor for jumping into Inside, and subsequently for the new game that just came out from a different studio from the co-founder, Somerville. So as I play these games, I'm ramping up to a Somerville review here in a few weeks, so if you're excited for that, consider sticking around. Either way, as I look back on my time with Limbo, my final verdict really is that Limbo, a game from 2010, is an experience that feels mostly in line with games today. The visual style and sound designs even cut above their weight at times, and these stand out with the best of games. The eeriness of the game is fully realized with the black and white art style that's only really escalated by the lack of musical touch, but full attention to detail on the sound effects. However, some environmental design feels a bit artificial to the world that we're shown. The puzzles are the main part of the experience, and while most feel engaging and fun to complete, you'll usually find yourself banging your worm-covered head into the wall a few times. Though it must be stressed that it is a short but super fun game that is well worth the full price. However, if you're new to the side-scrolling puzzle genre, you can always wait for a sale and get the game for pretty cheap. But really, that's it for me. My name is Falling Hertz. I like to do these look-back videos as I ramp up for the new releases. I'm kind of also doing the same with the Outlast series, and I put those videos out as well. But anyways, my name is Falling Hertz. I'm gonna get out of here. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.